Have you ever stopped to think about the hidden world that, well, basically powers our daily lives? You know, that huge, unseen engine that brings food to your table, gas to your car, and pretty much every gadget you own into your hands? Well, today, we're going to pull back that curtain and chart its course into a pretty radical new future. Okay, so let's just start with a simple question. Seriously, take a second and look at the stuff around you right now. Your phone, that coffee mug, maybe the t-shirt you're wearing. How did it all get to you? I can almost guarantee you the answer involves a long journey across an ocean.
That's right, we're talking about the global maritime industry. It's this massive, complex web of ships, ports, and people that is the absolute lifeblood of our global economy. And here's the thing, it's an ancient industry, but it's staring down a set of profoundly modern challenges that are about to change, well, everything.
So to really get a grip on the future, we first have to understand the massive global shifts that are happening right now. You could say a perfect storm is brewing, and the maritime world is sailing right into the middle of it.
First off, there's the environmental pressure. International shipping is responsible for about 2.2% of all global CO2 emissions. Now, that might not sound like a huge number by itself, but think about it. For a single industry, that is massive. And as global trade keeps growing, that number is only going to go up unless something major changes.
At the exact same time, the entire economic map of the world is being redrawn. Get this, back in 1980, the world's economic center of gravity was somewhere in the North Atlantic. Today, it's hovering around Pakistan, and by 2050, it's expected to be right on the border between India and China. So what that really means is that the old traditional trade routes are being fundamentally reshaped.
And then, you've got the people. The scale of demographic change here is just staggering. By 2050, Europe's population is actually expected to shrink by about 25 million people. But in stark contrast, Nigeria's population alone is projected to grow by over 200 million. This creates these enormous new markets in places like Africa, but it also creates new challenges for finding skilled workers in traditional maritime nations.
So you have these three huge forces, economic, environmental, and demographic, all crashing together at the same time. It's a completely unprecedented challenge, and it demands a totally new way of thinking, a new vision for how we use our oceans.
And that brings us to this, the UK's Maritime 2050 report. Think of it as a comprehensive blueprint, designed not just to sort of survive this storm, but to actually lead the way in creating a smarter, cleaner, and more sustainable maritime future. So let's break down its key pillars.
All right, first up, technology. This is all about taking one of the world's oldest industries and rocketing it straight into the 21st century.
Now, to really appreciate how radical this is, you have to understand that shipping has historically been incredibly slow to adopt new tech. I mean, sailing ships were the dominant force for centuries. It took decades for steam power to finally take over from sails. And for more than 100 years since then, most ships have been powered by the same basic thing, fuel oil.
Yeah, that slow pace is just not an option anymore. Why? Because a whole wave of disruption is hitting the sector all at once. We're talking about autonomous ships that can operate with little or no human crew, AI-driven logistics that make ports hyper-efficient, and digitization that's finally replacing centuries of paper-based traditions. This isn't science fiction, folks. This is happening right now.
Now, all this new technology is being pushed forward by a force that just cannot be ignored anymore. The environment. The pressure to decarbonize is immense, and it's creating what a lot of people are calling the green wave.
The target, which was set by the International Maritime Organization, is, well, it's incredibly ambitious. They're aiming for a 50% cut in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, compared to where they were in 2008. To hit a goal like that, you need a complete revolution in how ships are powered.
So, what are the options on the table? The big challenge is that there's no single silver bullet. You've got LNG, or liquefied natural gas, which is cleaner, but it's still a fossil fuel. Hydrogen is zero emission when you use it, but storing it on a giant ship is a huge hurdle. And batteries? They're really only practical for shorter trips right now. The entire industry is in a race to figure out which of these is going to power the future fleet.
And the UK is already turning these ideas into reality. You've got hybrid ferries running in Scotland. The world's first seagoing hydrogen-powered car ferry is being developed for the Orkney Islands, and ports are installing LNG bunkering facilities, which are basically just gas stations for these new kinds of ships. These projects are the very first steps toward a zero-emission future.
But listen,
All the technology and all the green fuel in the world means absolutely nothing without the final and I'd argue most important pillar, the people.
You know, I think this quote from the report is so critical. In this big rush to talk about robot ships and new fuels, it is so easy to forget the seafarers and the port workers who actually make it all happen. And as technology makes their jobs even more complex, focusing on this human element has never been more vital.
And the challenges they face are very, very real. Seafarers often suffer from high rates of mental health issues because of long periods of isolation at sea. The rise of automation means the skills you'll need tomorrow are completely different from the skills of today. And the industry has really struggled to attract a diverse workforce. Women, for example, are still significantly underrepresented.
So the Maritime 2050 strategy addresses this head-on with a really clear plan. It calls for much better welfare standards and connectivity at sea to fight that isolation, a new Maritime Skills Commission to make sure training stays up to date with technology, and targeted campaigns to build a more diverse and inclusive talent pipeline. So when you put it all together, the tech, the environmental goals, and the focus on people, you get this really powerful vision. This isn't just about tweaking an old industry. We're talking about a total transformation, one that means a healthier planet and a more reliable, more ethical supply chain for all the goods we depend on every single day.
Look, the journey from this blueprint to reality is going to be long and it's going to be challenging. But if they're successful, this strategy to navigate the future of our seas won't just change an industry, it could change the very way our world is connected. The big question is, can they pull it off?